Hey everybody! Remember the big green monster? That was half of a big walnut log. I turned that half green, and then the other half I cored and put in the kiln, and that's what we're going to work with today. You can see that it's pretty round. It didn't warp hardly at all. It came out of the kiln really nicely. There were just a couple of little cracks there. You can see I filled them in with the CA glue, and that worked nicely. They haven't opened up, and I don't think that they're going to be a problem. So I'm going to get the mortise cleaned up and get it mounted on the chuck. I did record the middle bowl, of which is going to get the exact same treatment, but this video is already a little long, so I'm basically just going to show you the large one, and then you can infer that I did the same process to the middle one. You guys know I'm not great with the pull cut, so I'm going to try and get the very bottom of this shaped a little bit before I turn it around, and then I can just do some shear scraping to clean it up and blend it in. The first thing I want to do is get the rim cleaned up and then get it into round on the inside so I can see how much thickness I have to work with on the rim. If you saw the video where I actually cored this blank, you'll remember that I got two bowls out of this biggest one. The smallest bowl is really kind of thin, and it had a branch hole in it, which the middle one does also. And I filled that with some tinted resin, so it's not going to be part of this set of nested bowls. I'm just going to have the large one and the middle one that are going to go together as a set with identical inlays in the rim. I've done a handful of different rim inlays. This is going to be similar to the one that I did, the very first one that I did, which was the cherry rock and roll bowl, I think. I'm going to cut as deep a channel as I can get without fearing that I'm going to come out the other side. I always tend to put too much inlay material in it, and then I have kind of an issue making sure that it's covered in resin, and then you end up cutting rocks, and it's kind of a pain. So every time I do this, I'm reminding myself that I need to make a deep channel and leave extra room at the top. I still have a ridiculously hard time getting the very center of the bowl to be flat and not either divoted or raised a little bit. You wouldn't think that it would be that hard, but man, I struggle with that. So off camera, I sanded the bowl and then I put a coat of 3-pound cut shellac on it. And then on top of that, I did both of the abrasive pastes. Inside the channel, I added a layer of medium CA glue to try to keep the resin and stuff from wicking down into the bowl, which I've had trouble with before. So the first inlay that I'm putting in is almost like sand. I got this inlay from Joann's. It's meant to be used with like floral arranging things. So far, this technique looks a lot like what Jim Sprague used to do over at Sprague Woodturning before he started using resin. So over the sandy bits, I'm adding a layer of these little pebbly things. These also came from the floral department at Joann's, so it's meant to be used in jars for arranging, plastic flowers and things. I'm trying not to add too many of these little pebbles. I don't want them to be near the top of the channel. I really want there to be some space at the top that the resin can fill, and then I don't have to worry about, cutting the resin back and then sanding it. I would really like to just be able to kind of dome the resin over the channel and then not have to mess with it. You'll have a nice, beautiful finish and I won't have to do all the sanding through a gazillion grit. So right here, I'm just adding a little bit more of the sand stuff to kind of fill in the spots between the pebbles. And then after that, I put a thin coat of CA glue on it just to set them in place so that none of it floats around while I'm doing the resin pour. I do have a furnace in my shop, but I usually only keep it at about 64 when I'm in there, and that is just not warm enough for resin. So I've got a nice fire going in the wood-burning stove in the den, and I have got both of these bowls still on the chucks, and I am trying to make sure that they are absolutely level, because what I'm hoping to do is to just pour resin over the rocks and not necessarily over the walnut parts that are on either side that make up the channel. So the most important thing is to make sure that it's level all the way around so that the resin doesn't want to just run off. Resin has a pretty high surface tension, but still I find that it goes where I don't want it to go and doesn't go where I do want it to go. It's a little bit finicky. So now I'm trying very hard to only pour resin a little bit at a time in the channel and not dribble it all over everything. This is not my strong suit. I'm using the amazing clear cast from Alumilite to fill the channel. I have recently become an affiliate for Alumilite and for Starbond, and so I have promo codes for both of those things where you can get 10% off anything that you order from them using the promo code Lisa10. I'll put that down in the description box with the rest of the video things. I guess I'll try it like this. Don't know if it'll work or not. And I waited until it got relatively thick and got some in the syringe. And now I'm just adding it literally a drop at a time, trying to fill the channel and maybe let it dome over just a touch, but not necessarily run over on the walnut. Which of course it did in a couple of places. So I've just got a paper towel and I am trying to wipe the resin off of the walnut. It does have shellac and the abrasive sanding pastes on it, so it has a little bit of a sheen and the resin isn't necessarily wanting to stick to it, but being able to wipe it off cleanly and not get into the resin that's sticking up just a little bit is proving tricky. Alright, so I've done a couple of applications of resin on this rim. Next time, what I'm going to do is cut the channel as deep as I can and leave a little bit more space at the top for the resin to fill. This here, this sort of white stuff, is liquid latex. My friend Miriam told me about this. It's used as a masking fluid in addition to, you know, making like crazy faces and stuff. And the resin doesn't stick to it. So rather than trying to create a dam with like electrical tape, because I didn't really want this, I didn't really want this raised. I just want the rocks encased. And I didn't even necessarily want the walnut edges to be under resin. That's just, I tried to just dome it in the middle, and I couldn't do that. And then I tried just to sort of fill in the edges that didn't get it from the first application. Anyway, long story short, this is like the third time that I've put resin on this rim. I'm really happy with how the resin itself came out. This one I think might be all right. I started trying to pull some of the latex off of the other bowl, and there were a couple of places on the smaller bowl where, and then you can see kind of maybe right here, where the resin came over, dripped over onto the latex farther than I had realized. While it was still thickish, I kind of went around and tried to, you know, make sure that that wasn't going to happen, but I did get it in a few places. And when I picked up the latex on the smaller bowl, it peeled off a piece of the resin from the top layer of the last one. So what I'm going to try to do is just rub the rest of the latex off of here. Now this bowl is not finished. All this has on it is a coat of shellac and then the Axe and Brad's sanding paste. So it's technically finished sanded. If that works out, it might not. I may have to sand it again, but that's not a big deal. I wanted to make sure that it had some sort of sealant on it, and then the latex, you know, shouldn't have any issue in not adhering to it. Anyway, I'm going to try and just rub the rest of the latex off without peeling any of the resin up, and then I'm going to sand. This is kind of fun. It's like putting glue on your hand when you're a kid. And then I'm going to just try and sand this and see if I can get this edge cleaned up without lifting it. If I can't, then what I'm probably going to end up having to do for these two bowls, just because of the way I cut the channel, is to do a little dam and try to just get a super thin layer of resin over the top of this. I'm definitely going to have to do something with the other one because it pulled a big chunk off. I had sanded all of this down before I put this last coat on, hoping that the resin was going to adhere. And it did in most places, but I think there was just enough of a gap from where the latex was that it, you know, it sort of dripped over and kept itself in one piece. So anyway, let's start pulling this off of here. I was a little worried at first that maybe the latex had stained the wood, but once I got the first coat of sanding paste on it, it blended it right in and it wasn't any problem at all. I would definitely use some sort of a sealer, sanding sealer, shellac, whatever, even finish, I think, before you apply the liquid latex, just to make sure that it doesn't soak in and actually stain the wood somehow. This is the Axe abrasive sanding paste, and I'm basically just going to do my entire normal finishing process all the way over here. So I've done the application of the Axe, and I've got the speed down a little bit lower than normal because this is a big bowl, and I'm just rubbing it in. And then now I've got the speed turned up to about 950, 940, something like that, and am buffing the abrasive paste in and off, I guess. Now I'm going to put on Brad's abrasive sanding paste. I know a lot of you guys keep asking me why I do both of them, and the answer is because I can, and I don't think that it can ever be too smooth. Again, I sort of liken this to when you're using the Beal buffing system. You have two compounds that you use. You start with the Tripoli and then you go to the white diamond before you use the wax, and I'm kind of treating this as the same sort of a thing. Brad's abrasive sanding paste is a little bit finer grit than Axe, and so I start with Axe, and then I use Brad's, and then I use whatever top coat I'm going to put on. In this case, I'm using Brad's tongue wax. I've already applied a coat of the finish and let it sit for probably an hour and a half or so. And then I'm coming back with a paper towel, and with the speed of the lathe up, I'm going to go ahead and buff that in, and that will help to melt the wax. And speaking of Brad's and Axe, they've both donated products for me to give away as part of my upcoming 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So that's really awesome. Everybody stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so, because the only rule for the giveaway is that you have to be a subscriber. I'm still finalizing the other things that will be part of this giveaway, but that's a pretty good start. So a big thanks to Brad's and Axe for donating their products as part of this giveaway. I'm super happy with how this walnut bowl came out, and I can't wait to get the smaller one finished. They are going to make an incredibly beautiful set of nesting bowls, so I'm pretty stoked about these. Well, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so, and then you will be eligible to participate in the 10,000 subscriber giveaway. That's very exciting. I can't really believe that that is on the horizon, and yet here we are. So, again, thank you so much for watching. Y'all be safe out there. Ariel, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess. Indeed it is.